Imagine a single bucket in 5 minutes of your time. 48 hours later, you have twice as much protein as you started with. There is no soil to till, no weeds to pull, and no months of waiting for a harvest. NASA has called this the most protein-dense plant on Earth, yet families in Thailand have been quietly cultivating it for centuries. They call it ka nam, the eggs of the water. It is harvested daily like breakfast, not by the season. This is a complete protein containing every essential amino acid, growing faster than anything Western agriculture has ever seen. Three things explain why almost nobody in the West grows it. The first involves a 5-minute setup so simple it threatens billion-dollar industries. The second involves NASA research that has been public since 1966, but buried under layers of agricultural policy. And the third involves a profitable lie we've been told about where protein comes from. A lie that depends on you never questioning whether growing your own is actually possible. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this plant was hidden from you. You'll know the precise technical setup that turns any container into a protein factory, and you'll have the data to prove this isn't speculation. It's peer-reviewed science. Welcome back to Nature Unearthed. If you've ever wondered why growing your own protein feels impossible while corporations profit from your dependence, you're about to discover something backed by decades of research that changes everything. Act 1. The plant that breaks the rules. This plant doesn't grow in soil, it grows on still water. Each frond is smaller than a grain of rice, appearing as bright green, living emeralds floating on the surface. Most species have no visible roots. It doesn't wait for the seasons. Research published in Current Biology in 2023 confirmed that under favorable conditions, duckweed doubles its biomass clonally in 48 to 72 hours. A 2025 paper in Scientific Reports measured doubling times as fast as 1.34 days, with some species approaching a 16-hour doubling time under perfect conditions. Compare this to anything else you might grow. Soybeans need a minimum of 90 days from planting to harvest, and beef cattle need 18 months to reach slaughter weight. This plant doubles before most people remember to water their houseplants. You don't weed it, you don't fertilize it beyond minimal nutrients, and you don't have to protect it from pests. You simply provide water and sunlight, and it multiplies relentlessly. And the plant is called duckweed. The family includes 5 genera, but the most remarkable is Wolffia. These spheres are barely visible to the naked eye, often measuring less than 1 millimeter in diameter. It thrives in buckets, ponds, and glass trays, anywhere water sits still long enough for sunlight to reach the surface. This is abundance encoded into the genetic architecture of the plant itself. Picture day 1, where you place a thin green film on the water. By day 3, a carpet so thick you cannot see the water beneath has formed. By day 5, you scoop out handfuls and the bucket looks exactly as full as it did before. The plant replaces itself overnight. Act 2. The food that fed without farms. For generations in northern and northeastern Thailand, families have harvested these tiny green spheres from still water. No farm was needed and no fertilizer was purchased. Just wooden buckets and patience measured in days. They served it fresh in omelets or stirred it into soups. The taste surprises everyone who tries it. Mild, clean, and slightly nutty. Nothing like the pond scum its appearance might suggest. This wasn't survival food. It was a mastery of simplicity. Thai grandmothers understood something Western agriculture forgot. Protein doesn't require vast fields or expensive equipment. It requires understanding what nature already perfected. In early temple ponds, duckweed symbolized self-renewal, a food source that gives endlessly without depletion. There were no irrigation systems and no harvest seasons, just daily collection like gathering eggs from chickens that never need feeding. Now they called it eggs of the water because it provided complete nutrition, including every essential amino acid the human body cannot produce on its own. For centuries, this knowledge passed quietly from grandmother to grandchild. It wasn't written in manuals or patented by seed companies. It was just practiced as a daily reality. For them, growing protein wasn't a question, it was breakfast. Act 3. What modern science confirmed. Eventually, a scientist at Rutgers University, Dr. Eric Lamb, noticed what indigenous communities already knew. He studied a plant so small it defied everything modern agriculture taught about efficiency. When NASA started searching for food to grow on space stations, they tested every candidate imaginable, from lettuce to soybeans. One plant outperformed them all. Under the same protein source a Thai grandmother harvests from buckets now feeds astronauts in orbit. Dr. Wayne Armstrong at California State University spent decades documenting every duckweed species and found Wolfia globosa growing wild within miles of major American universities, hidden in plain sight in local ponds and drainage ditches. The peer-reviewed numbers are staggering. Researchers publishing in food chemistry found that duckweed protein content ranges from 20% to 45% dry weight. To put that in perspective, common duckweed like Lemna giba can hit 45% crude protein, while soybeans sit at 36%, beef at 26%, and eggs at a mere 13%. The protein inside is mostly rubisco, the enzyme that allows plants to convert sunlight and CO2 into sugar. In duckweed, this molecule concentrates at levels that exceed almost any conventional source. A 2025 paper in Scientific Reports even called duckweed the Darwinian demon, the theoretical organism that reproduces as fast as mathematically possible. In terms of land use efficiency, the data from Science Direct shows that duckweed produces over 2,000 kilograms of protein per hectare per year. Soybeans produce only 303 kilograms, and corn produces 179. That means duckweed is nearly 7 times more efficient than soy. Under optimal greenhouse conditions, it can yield up to 18 tons of protein per hectare, compared to about 1 ton for soy. NASA's first orbital experiment with this was in 1966. They have grown it on the Mir space station and in closed aquatic systems. Research from 2024 showed that just 600 grams of fresh wolfia could meet an adult astronaut's entire daily protein needs. Tank 4. Why it disappeared. So why did this knowledge disappear from Western awareness? It comes down to 3 reasons that reveal the flaws in our food system. First, it looks like pond scum. Western agriculture values the visual spectacle of uniform cornfields and massive machinery. A plant you need a magnifying glass to appreciate doesn't create the right imagery for industrial promotion. Second, it cannot be patented in its natural form. No seed company profits from a plant that reproduces by splitting in half. It eliminates the middleman because you don't need annual seed purchases, specialized tractors, or processing facilities. Third, the industrial food system depends on complexity. It relies on long supply chains and capital investment. A plant that grows itself in any container with water threatens a model built on dependence. Industrial agriculture needed crops that required inputs, things you have to buy every year. Duckweed creates abundance so effortlessly it became invisible. We didn't lose it because it stopped working. We stopped noticing it because noticing it would have threatened the profits of those who convinced us that protein requires their intervention. Act 5. The cost of replacement. In place of this simple solution, we built a system tied to petroleum-based fertilizers and irrigation that drains aquifers. Food and Bioprocess Technology published data in 2025 showing that beef production creates 27 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per kilogram of meat, while duckweed creates only 0.4 kilograms. That is nearly 70 times the environmental impact for a food source that offers less complete nutrition. Duckweed needs no tractors, no pesticides, and no competition for cropland. When you grow duckweed in a bucket, you are participating in an economic rebellion. You eliminate every single transaction except the initial container. You aren't paying for soil amendments, pest control, or retail markups. You are growing protein that belongs to no one's patent and requires no one's permission. This is why it threatens the model. It works too well for anyone to profit from your dependence. Communities currently import food they could grow in a bucket, and families go into debt for land to produce what could float on a windowsill. The smallest plant on Earth solved what the largest farms could not: protein independence without capital investment. Act 6. The return of a forgotten solution. The knowledge is finally returning. Companies are rediscovering what grandmothers never forgot, to turning duckweed into high-end protein ingredients and superfood supplements. Backyard chicken keepers and fish farmers are using it to cut feed costs significantly, noticing that their animals become healthier almost instantly. You can start this today with a very simple setup. Choose a shallow, wide container like a 5-gallon bucket or a plastic storage bin, as duckweed only grows on the surface. 3 to 6 inches of water is plenty. Ideally, use rainwater or pond water, but dechlorinated tap water works fine. For nutrients, the most elegant solution is using water from a fish tank, creating a symbiotic cycle. If that isn't an option, a tiny amount of diluted liquid fertilizer or even a single decaying leaf can provide enough for a starter culture. You only need a tablespoon of starter to begin. Give it 8 to 12 hours of bright light and keep the temperature between 70 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the greens cover the surface, skim half of them off with a strainer and leave the rest to multiply. You can use it fresh in smoothies or dry it into a powder. Just remember, never dump duckweed into natural waterways, as it can be invasive. Responsible cultivation is key to preserving this resource. Closing. The plant that never left this plant has been waiting in forgotten ponds and drainage ditches all along. The plant didn't disappear, our awareness did. Nature never forgot efficiency, but we were taught that protein requires complexity and permission from systems built to profit. A food source that doubles overnight reminds us what true simplicity looks like. It reminds us that some solutions were never lost, just overlooked. What Thai grandmothers knew and NASA confirmed is now in your hands. If rediscovering what nature perfected matters to you, subscribe to Nature Unearthed. The future belongs to those who remember what we were taught to forget.